Hi guys, as usual, all the necessary links in the video description and my test system setup details for those small amps also in the video description down below. So not so long ago, Aiyima released A20 stereo amplifier as part of their 10th anniversary line. And quite recently, about a month ago I think, it was joined by A20 Mono. Monoblock, fully balanced, and also TPA 5255 based amplifiers. Obviously, in this case, you will need two of them to play stereo sound to drive a pair of speakers, and this will set you back something like $350, shipping included. Though you may push that down with AliExpress sale price, coupons, coins, etc. I think we will have another big sale starting on 17th of August, so let's wait those couple of days. These amplifiers are small. They run warm, but they do not run hot. And they promise to deliver the best Aiyima sound quality so far. And that's what I'll be talking about a little bit later. But let's start with the numbers and the specification. Those amps are using PFFB feedback loops, so basically standard on the market right now. As I've said earlier, they are based on Texas Instruments TPA 5255. And the output power numbers are pretty amazing or interesting in a way, because the promise is that each one of them is able to deliver maximum 620 watts into 2 ohms load. That drops down to 50 watts into 4 ohms and 170 watts into 8 ohms. Those numbers are amazing, but those numbers are given for the maximum output power at 10% THD, so basically with a very high distortion rate. Also, one thing that's a limiting factor, at least in my case, is the fact that I'm using 48 volts DC, 5 amperes output GAN power supply, which means that realistically we will be able to deliver maximum 240 watts per channel. But the rated power outputs are obviously smaller because they are rated for 1% THD. So that would be 400 watts into 2 ohms, 200 watts into 4 ohms, and 100 watts into 8 ohms. I would say that if we would like to stay within reasonable THD limits, then we would be somewhere around, let's say, 70 watts per channel into 8 ohms, which is still excellent. If you take a look at the size, if you take a look at the power consumption, it is still an excellent result. Signal to noise ratio is more than 118 decibels, so that's pretty nice. THD plus noise at lowest is 0.002%, which is also an excellent number. Frequency response is specified as anything between 20 Hz and 20 kHz with 0.4 decibel drop at the ends of the spectrum, but actually at the top end of the spectrum it's not a drop, it's a rise, because the frequency response is flat and it's starting to slightly rise at the top end. Subwoofer output delivers us anything between 20 Hz and 200 Hz, unless we will use a high-pass filter switch, and that sets the output at the 80 Hz. I've shown you the power supply, and it's able to accept also 52 volts power supplies that will deliver slightly lower maximum output power. Internally, the promise is that this amplifier is fully balanced, and the SINAT number is 93 decibels, which is also a pretty nice number. So let's talk about the build quality of those amplifiers. I've switched that guy off because it's already almost disassembled, so we'll take a look inside in a second, but let's start with this guy and let's power it off. Or maybe let's start with the controls. We have one large switch here Short click changes the input between RCA and XLR, balanced input, and long click powers off the amplifier. If I want to power this guy on again, I need to short click the button once again. And the buttons are pretty sensitive and they are mechanical micro switches, but they work very nicely. And we do have a VU meter. I've read some voices stating that the VU meter is just too bright, but I don't think so. And judge it for yourselves. For me, that's perfectly fine because the color, I'm not sure if this comes right with the camera, but the color is slightly warm. So it's like an orange hue or something like that. Let's power it off. And if you remember, if you recall, Aiyima had similar amplifiers in similar form factor. I believe they were called A80, but they were missing venting holes on the sides. This guy has them, and it also has venting holes in the back and on the bottom. And this means that any op-amp rolling will be much safer because it actually does have venting holes. Okay, so I've shown you the sides, I've shown you the bottom. These screws are holding the full aluminum block that's used as a radiator in place, but we will see that in a second. And in the back of the device, we have one set of speaker outputs that will accept bananas, spades, and bare wire. The speaker tabs are gold-plated. We have 20 volts trigger in, so we can control the power on and off of this amplifier with tube preamplifier, DAC, or something else. We have power supply connector, as I've said earlier, 52 up to 48 volts DC. This is a standard barrel connector. We have RCA input, we have XLR balanced input, and we have subwoofer output. On top of the device, we have two switches. The first one decides about the RCA gain, although I found weird info in the frequently asked questions section of the documentation, stating that maybe this will not change only RCA gain, but also XLR gain. I haven't tested that. I was using this with XLRs only for my sound quality testing, so I haven't checked if this actually affects also RCA, also XLR, but it's described as RCA gain. And we do have a high-pass filter switch. In off position, subwoofer output gives us anything between 20 and 200 Hz. If I'll switch that switch here, the subwoofer output will be locked at 80 Hz and below. Okay, so that's for the external built-in controls. Let's power that guy on. Yep. And let's take a look inside. In order to disassemble this amplifier, you need to remove bottom screws, 2 of them, and you need to remove 4 screws that are in the corner of the back plate. As you can see, I've left only one here, so let's remove that one. And once it will be out, we'll be able to disassemble the amplifier. You need to remember about one thing though. The VU meter is connected with the PCB via short cables, so you should start with sliding the front out, and then you should use your finger or some kind of tool to disconnect this small cable from the PCB. Then you can remove the front assembly, watching out for the button because it likes to fall out, but it's here, so let's have it like that. And then you can slide the PCB away from the chassis. And what can we see here? We can see that we have one replaceable operational amplifier. The stock one is LME 49720NA, and that's placed in deep DIP8 socket, so we can replace it with something of our own choosing. We do have a microcontroller that controls the front buttons, this micro switch, and the behavior of the amplifier. We have a number, 2 of them, of OPA 1612 operational amplifiers, and we have a set of any 5552 operational amplifiers, probably for the subwoofer output and high-pass filters. What else can we see here? We can see another NE5552 over here and another one over here. I should be using my stick. Yes, this guy and this guy. Those small capacitors are Panasonic Matsushita caps. We have large Rubicon caps rated, as you can see, for 63 volts and 3300 microfarads. There are two of them. And we have coils inductors over here. So the build seems to be pretty simple. This is a large aluminium block used as a heatsink over the top of the TPA 5255. I'm not sure if you will be able to see that without sharp light, but the chip is underneath the aluminium block and there is heat conducting paste on top of it, although there is nothing like that on the top of the block. It's just screwed to the chassis, and that's it. So basically this is a very simple build, and the question is, how does it actually sound? And let's talk about that. Just give me a second to at least partially assemble this back. One more thing before I actually close that. As you can see, there are tons of room above the socket, so you can place even super high operational amplifiers like Bursons or Staccato or whatever. The only thing you need to remember, you may be needing additional DIP8 sockets as erasers for this socket mounted on the PCB because of those two capacitors that are quite close. If your operational amplifier will be a little bit larger than the socket, then you will need to raise that up with another DIP sockets used as raisers. So that's it, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, it was just one screw, so it will be holding in one piece, but I won't be powering the other one up. And let's talk about the promise of the sound quality. And as usual, let's start with the bass. The first surprise in the bass was the fact that it didn't sound dry. It wasn't something I would immediately recognize as a Class D bass. Moreover, I would even dare to say it's a little on the warm side, not to the point of being organic, but the way I hear it, it's not that neutral. And one more surprise was that although it does go low, it doesn't seem to go super low like Class D amplifiers like to do. It is closer to Class AB in overall bass signature. And it does have good mid bass. That again is not dry, so that's another nice surprise. Mid-range. Mid-range is neutral and natural. Again, nothing dry or analytical here, though the resolution is quite nice. It sounds relaxed in a way, but not veiled. Quite clear, in fact. Vocals sound natural and again neutral, which is a very good thing because there is nothing grainy or dry here. So that's another nice surprise. Treble. Treble seems to be a little bit, tiny bit, rolled off at the super high top end. So it is clear, it is transparent, it is airy, but I felt nagging need to push it even further, and that could be done with op-amp swaps. For example, with Burson's V7 Vivids, OPA 627 or 828 series. But the LME 49720 also does a great job here. But the thing is, I quite like it the way it is even with stock amplifiers. So that's something really nice. Usually that type of amplifiers would be using any 5552 inside, and 5552 does make the sound smoother, but it also introduces a kind of veil, a kind of drop in resolution. And this time we are not seeing any 5552 as a preamp, we are seeing LME 49720, and this is quite nice choice. Okay, let's move to the resolution. Let's talk about the technicalities. Resolution is good. And again, A20 Mono can be pushed even further with a right operational amplifier. But the thing is that even with stock setup, it's actually quite good. And when I was going through my choral and orchestral tracks, I wasn't missing much, but only some super small things here and there. And that's a compliment, because I am using the same tracks to test amplifiers that are many times the price. So that, all in all, that's another nice surprise. Soundstage and imaging. Soundstage is very wide and it's very deep, with proper layering and height information. And that's the biggest thing, because almost all Class D amplifiers I've heard to date, with just a few notable exceptions, were giving rather shallow soundstage, with proper layering, but they were close one to another. A20 set has good depth and sound layers are evenly spaced, with some things being projected in front of the speakers. And this area is a highlight with A20 Mono. So, thumbs up. And my summary. To be honest, I did expect them to be a little better than stereo A20 version, as they have the advantage of being monoblocks, and this gives excellent channel separation. So I did expect a little better layering in the soundstage, but I was expecting A20 Mono to be, all in all, very similar to a regular stereo A20. And it did surprise me, as in many areas it's a significantly better amplifier. Again, that can be the advantage of the monoblocks, as they do not have to share the power supply, and each one of them can have more power at tap when needed. All in all, A20 Mono is unexpectedly good, and with that price tag, it's an excellent value. And you can make it even better, as a lot of Aiyima gear is being sold via AliExpress. So if you will wait a little, you will be able to get them on some kind of sale with Ali coupons. That's happening basically every other month. I think the next big sale is just around the corner, as my phone app started to give me back to school banners. But getting to the point, a set of two A20 Monos is an excellent, really good and high value purchase. A few years ago, that sound quality with that price tag would be just unbelievable, and this shows how far Class D got right now. And I still keep my fingers crossed for it, as every year it is quickly advancing, giving us better and better options, like this year A20 Monos. So yes, they get my recommendation. And if you like that review, if it helped you in any way, you're more than welcome to support my channel by getting me a beer, because I'm a beer guy. You can also use YouTube Super Thanks button, that should be somewhere down below the video. And if you have any questions, give me a shout in the comments. Again, all the necessary links and my test system setup details in the video description, and pay attention to those, because I am using my test system basically doesn't give any slack to tested amplifiers, because it's not like I'm testing value amplifiers with super cheap speakers. No, I'm giving them the best wiring, the best cables, the best speakers I have, the best DAC as a source, because I'm trying to push every tested equipment as far as I can get to truly judge how well it scales up. And these guys are scaling pretty well. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this video, and have a great day with your music, guys. See you next time.